I still remember that morning like it was burned into the back of my mind, the smell of diesel, the chill of dawn, and that bright yellow Hummer parked sideways across my ranch gate like a golden brick wall. Her license plate read, Queen HOA. I laughed at first, thought it was some kind of joke. But when I saw the glittering pink sign taped to the windshield, Community Blockade Property Violation under review, I realized it wasn't a prank. Karen had declared war on the dirt itself, and by sundown that Hummer was going to learn gravity the hard way. I'd lived on that land my whole life. My granddad carved that road with his own hands, laid every stone and fence post with care. The gravel might have been rough, but it was ours, our freedom, our way of life. Then one day this woman moved in across the road. Karen. Perfect blonde bob, pressed white blazer, clipboard in hand. She brought her HOA rules with her like they were holy scripture and immediately decided my ranch was a visual pollutant. Said my tractor's fences, even my cows, were disruptive to the community aesthetic. At first I tried to laugh it off. You don't pick fights with mosquitoes, they just get louder. But this one had a megaphone. She started sending letters every week, folded perfectly and perfumed like they were invitations to hell. Noise pollution by livestock, unauthorized fence color, organic fertilizer odor concerns. She even called the sheriff once because, I kid you not, she said my cows were glaring aggressively. The sheriff almost choked laughing when he told me that. But laughter only lasts so long. It turned into something darker when she started showing up in person, leaning on my fence, lecturing me about shared community responsibility. One day she brought a can of white paint, waved it at my fence, and said, "If you just make it match the others, it'll look cohesive." I told her, "This fence isn't meant to be cohesive, it's meant to keep cattle out of your flower beds." She didn't laugh. She took photos instead. The worst part, she actually rallied a few of the newer homeowners to her cause, folks who'd traded city noise for country quiet and thought HOA rules were the cure to chaos. She started hosting meetings at the rec center preaching about rural modernization and aesthetic uniformity. Flyers showed up in mailboxes calling for a ban on tractors before 9 a.m. and noise limits on roosters. My neighbor Earl just shook his head and said, "Guess I'll tell the cows to sleep in." Then came the day she crossed the line from annoying to dangerous. I found her and two of her cronies standing by my fence with a hammer. "We're making boundary adjustments," she said, like that was a normal thing to do on someone else's property. I called the sheriff. He gave her a trespassing warning and told her to stay off my land. But the next night, I saw her headlights sweeping across my pasture again. That's when I realized this wasn't just about fences anymore, it was about control. I tried to ignore it. Really, I did. But when someone keeps breathing down your neck long enough, silence starts to feel like surrender. There was a night when I sat on my porch staring at the dark road and thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was too stubborn, too proud. Maybe I should just sell the place, move somewhere without self-appointed queens. But then I thought about my grandfather, about the way his hands used to shake from years of work, how he used to say, "The land doesn't belong to you, boy, you belong to it. So protect it like family." That pulled me out of it. I wasn't fighting her anymore. I was defending what generations before me had built. That's when I started planning. I installed cameras, 3 of them hidden and motion activated. Every visit, every trespass, every inspection she did with that clipboard of hers went straight to the cloud. And one night, the camera caught her red-handed, wearing a reflective vest, shining a flashlight at my gate, writing something down like she was on an official mission. The next morning I printed the footage and handed it to the sheriff. He sighed and said, "If she pushes 1 inch further, Hank, do what you gotta do. Just keep it legal." I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A few mornings later I stepped outside with my coffee and froze. Her yellow Hummer, massive, spotless, ridiculous, was parked across my ranch gate. The sign on the windshield read, "Community Injunction Active. No entry until review." The engine was still running, doors locked, tires buried halfway in my gravel. It was like she'd planted a flag in the middle of my life. I laughed so hard I spilled coffee on my boot. Then I pulled out my phone and started recording. A few minutes later, the sheriff pulled up, looked at the scene, and just muttered, "She finally did it. He told me I could have it towed, even press charges. But I told him, not yet. I'll give her one chance to make it right." He raised an eyebrow. "And if she doesn't," I said, "then I'll move it myself." He sighed. "Keep it clean, Hank." I nodded. "Always do." Not long after, I heard her voice echoing down the road, sharp, nasal, righteous. "You can't touch that vehicle. It's legally parked under community review." She came strutting up the trail in her white blazer, sunglasses, and wide hat like she was walking into a courtroom. "This road is part of our shared community space," she declared, waving that clipboard. I leaned on the gate and smiled. "Karen, this is a ranch road. It's private. Says so right there on the deed." She sniffed the air dramatically. "Well, whatever that smell is, it's not environmentally compliant." I said, "That's called work, Karen. Smells like something you've never done." Her face twisted like I'd slapped her with a shovel. She started ranting about fines violations and collective harmony. I told her calmly, "Move it by sundown or I'll move it for you." She laughed. "You wouldn't dare." I looked toward my barn where my old red tractor sat gleaming in the sunlight. "You're right," I said. "I wouldn't tow it." She stormed off, muttering about lawsuits. By afternoon, she was back with reinforcements. 2 HOA members matching polo shirts, one holding a camera, the other a folded document like it was the Constitution. They stood beside the Hummer like security guards at a palace. She even brought a folding chair, and a thermos sat there taking selfies in front of her blockade. The sight would have been funny if it wasn't so insane. A few neighbors showed up on the ridge, curious to see how far she'd take it. One yelled, "Karen, you gonna charge toll fees now?" She ignored them, of course. She was too busy playing Queen of the Gravel. By sunset, I'd had enough. The air was thick with dust, the sky burning orange. I grabbed the heavy towing chain from my shed, slung it over my shoulder, and walked down the road. The crowd went quiet. Karen stood up, clutching her clipboard like a shield. "You can't," she shouted. "This is illegal." I stopped a few feet away, met her eyes, and said evenly, "What's illegal is blocking a man from his own land. You had your chance." Her friends fumbled for their phones, recording everything. I climbed onto the tractor, turned the key, and felt the old engine rumble awake beneath me. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder. Karen screamed something about lawsuits, but her voice was drowned out by the growl of horsepower and vengeance. I eased forward, slow and deliberate, hooked the chain to the Hummer's rear axle, and nodded to myself. Then I shifted into gear. The chain went taut with a metallic groan. Dust exploded in the air. The Hummer rocked once, twice. Then the ground gave way beneath it. With one steady pull, that oversized monument to arrogance tipped backward into the ditch, landing with a crunch that echoed through the hills. The crowd gasped. Karen screamed. I shut off the tractor and climbed down. "Road's clear," I said quietly. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up just in time to see it all. He looked from the ditch to me, then to Karen, who was standing there trembling, hair wild, clipboard bent in half. "Well," he said, "that's one way to handle a blockade." Karen shrieked, "He destroyed my property. That's a felony." The sheriff crossed his arms. "Ma'am, you parked illegally on private land after multiple warnings. What happened here is a civil consequence." She stared at him, mouth open. "You're siding with him." "I'm siding with the law," he said. The neighbors started laughing. Someone yelled, "Guess the HOA's got a new speed bump." Another added, "Better tow it before the cows move in." Even the sheriff cracked a smile. Karen spun on me, eyes blazing. "You think this is funny?" I looked her dead in the eye. "No, Karen. You did this to yourself." She stormed off, still shouting about lawsuits and revenge. But within days, her empire crumbled. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. Half the members quit on the spot. The rest voted to suspend her pending investigation. Her insurance denied the claim after reviewing the footage. The video, of course, went viral. Rancher flips HOA president's Hummer with tractor. People across the state called it poetic justice. Someone even made stickers that said, "Move it or lose it." They sold out in a week. A few weeks later, she put her house up for sale. The new owners were kind, down-to-earth folks. They built a wooden mailbox, planted sunflowers, waved when they saw me drive by. The road was quiet again. No more rules, no more perfume-scented letters, just the wind through the fence and the sound of tires crunching gravel. I never felt proud of what happened. Not exactly, but I felt peace, real peace. The kind that doesn't come from winning, it comes from standing your ground. The kind that reminds you that some battles aren't about anger. They're about respect. Respect for boundaries, for truth, for the land that keeps you honest. Karen thought she could bend the world to her rules, but the land doesn't bend. It waits. It teaches. And when the time comes, it pushes back. Sometimes louder than words.